another video. Hope you guys enjoyed that cars and coffee footage from earlier this morning. That's not what the video was about, but there were some beautiful cars there. There was an awesome Lamborghini Performante. The back was kind of torn off because they were wrapping it, and it was really, really cool to see, you know, how the exhaust and everything works in those cars. Absolutely beautiful with the forged carbon, everything there. So that was awesome. That's not what we're here to talk about today. What we're talking about is the new horsepower numbers on this car. Got the car tuned last weekend, E85 headers. I gotta tell you, the car has been awoken. Is that a word? Awoken? The car has been woken up. The beast has been woken. I'm not exactly sure. But anyways, I'm telling you guys, this thing, just E85 and headers and a tune, there is a huge noticeable difference. For anybody thinking about modding their cars and losing the warranty, I would say absolutely worth it. Do it. Before we talk about the dyno numbers and everything there, I'm gonna give you guys just a little bit of a clip here of, you know, what's going on with the car. Of course, got to do some tunnel runs here. Right away, the biggest noticeable difference, obviously at the high end, but at the low end of the curve. I've noticed even in a low RPM, around 2,000-3,000 in fourth gear, fifth gear, whatever, the car pulls noticeably harder than it did before. Obviously, you're gonna get the horsepower at the high end, but even the low end torque is just really surprising. It does slouch a little bit, you know, around that 2,000 to 3,000 RPM range, you know, stock. And I'll tell you, just the E85 and the headers, you know, really just kind of opening it up, getting the tune in there, just adding power and torque all the way across the power band. I notice it the most when I'm in that low RPM range, so 2,000 to 3,000 RPMs, and it's just a huge difference. The problem with this is that it's addicting. You know, I want a cam, I want a supercharger, and I just want to keep getting more power. So just be careful, the power bug will get you. Before I reveal the dyno numbers, I'm gonna go ahead and drive home, so I'll meet you there. All right, made it back home. We've got the magical dyno sheet here in my hands. What are the numbers gonna be? We're about to find out. Without further ado, here are the dyno numbers. Drum roll. All right, anyways. So here's what we're looking at. 441 wheel horsepower, 427 torque. Now here's the baseline run, and this isn't really a baseline, this isn't stock because this is with headers on the car. So it ended up making 419 wheel horsepower with just the headers without a tune. Then we're looking at 423 horsepower with the headers and a tune. So it added a little bit there, cleaned things up. The car was obviously running a little bit lean and crackling and popping a lot. It's not doing that anymore. And then the E85 brought it all the way up to 441 and 427 torque. And the nice thing is that you can see that it makes power all the way across the curve. So not only down low is it making more power, but all the way up until peak. Same thing with torque. It's a nice, smooth torque curve all the way across the spectrum. So I'm really happy with those results. You don't want to see things like spikes and things where they go down and up and you have a peak horsepower or anything like that. You guys may be looking at those numbers there and thinking, oh, it's only 441 wheel horsepower, only 427 torque. I've seen bigger numbers on the internet. Now there's two things really to keep in mind here. Number one, I got this done at Cunningham Motorsports where the Lethal Camaro, he got his car dynoed as well. And their dyno is known as a heartbreaker dyno. I'm just using him as an example because he got his car dynoed at the same place, and he said he got his car dynoed also at other dynos, and it read anywhere from, you know, 30, 40, 50 horsepower difference. So don't keep an eye on just that end number there. That's not what's important. The dyno has a lot to play. But also what I want you guys to keep in mind is that the reason why I like this is because, again, there's a smooth curve there. You'll have some tuners who will do things like they'll tune it so it'll spike at one point, and you'll see, oh, there's this great max horsepower on the dyno, but on the rest of the curve, it's shit, or it's the same, or it's sometimes even worse. You know, there are some mods that actually do that. They're worse on the lower end of the spectrum, and then once you get the RPMs higher, they make more horsepower. So some tuners tune it that way, and then they just say, oh, I made this much power and this much torque. But the reality is, the way the car drives, the numbers are not what matters. What matters is how the car drives. So what does all this mean in terms of horsepower? I will tell you, there is certainly no lack of power in this thing across the spectrum. Smiles every time. My best guess in terms of crank horsepower numbers, since we're at 441 wheel horsepower on a Heartbreaker dyno, we're probably at the very least looking at 520 crank horsepower on E85, but could be up to as much as 550, 575. Really hard to tell, you know, without being able to, you know, dyno the exact engine, but with some drivetrain loss and obviously, you know, a guesstimate starting at 455 horsepower, which is stock, it's safe to say that we're pushing a little, well over 500 horsepower here. So we're now pretty much a Mustang slayer at this point. I will have a video coming very soon where I'm gonna do some tests on the car of E85 versus 91 pump gas. We'll do some launches, we'll do some 0 to 60s, and actually see, hey, does it make a difference, or is it just my ass that feels the difference when, you know, I'm flooring it on the freeway? So stay tuned for that. But for now, I will tell you guys that this thing is just an absolute beast. We don't have a cam, don't have a supercharger, anything like that. Air intake is a total waste of money. So in my opinion, these are the best two mods that anybody starting to want to mod their Camaro. These are the things that you probably want to start with. They're the lowest in price and they're the best bang for your buck without going too much into the internals of the engine. These are at least fairly reversible at some point. Unfortunately, I no longer have the ability to quiet up my exhaust with a dual mode exhaust when driving by these guys, if you know what I'm saying. If you saw my last video, I think you do know what I'm saying. For anybody wondering how much it costs, because I'm sure there's always going to be one or two people that say, oh, how much did the tune cost, whatever. So the tune itself was about $700, and then I used their E85, so they charged me for some gas. But just the tune was $700. The E85 sensor, the flex fuel, which I installed myself, was $300, and then the headers were $1,000. So all in all, into the builds, we're looking at, you know, a little bit over $2,000, and you know, the car makes good horsepower. It's a lot more fun to drive, and thank God the skip shift feature is gone now. Great thing about a tune, even though the warranty's voided here, is that they finally got rid of that skip shift 1 to 4 bullshit that Chevy makes you do, and it's just so much smoother from first to second. I notice a huge difference already. I just got a lot more smiles while I'm driving the car. So anyways, really hope you guys enjoyed the video. You know, people out in San Diego, I'd love to see you guys at the next San Diego Cars and Coffee. I love going out, seeing people, meeting other people, seeing other people's build, their cars, everything like that. Consider subscribing if you guys already haven't. Any questions about the build or anything about headers, E85, tuning, Camaros, whatever, comment it down below and I will always get back to you guys and answer your questions, or you can always hit me up on Instagram at Marcoon13. But other than that, looking forward to seeing you guys on the next one. See you later, guys!